Brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me today. So this video goes hand in hand with the lesson that I did when I was instructed to use Genesis 1 through 5. And as we understand how new heaven and earth is being created, then we are able to grasp more fully what we are experiencing at this time on the earth as we are going through this birthing and travailing process. So as we see Genesis, from the beginning of Genesis to the last Revelation 22, the very last book in Revelation, it goes from the tree of life to the tree of life. The very last thing that Father showed me in the eternities was the tree of life, and then I was woken up after I was shown all the kingdoms, all the worlds without numbers, and the tree of life, and understanding the importance of it. So as we understand, we are the trees of life. We have spiritual gifts, knowledge, and understanding that is eternal. We are eternally progressing. Then we understand more fully how the book, how Genesis, how a new heaven and earth is created. This is the process, but it's also seeing that process through spiritual eyes of how the worlds continue to ascend and progress, and how a new kingdom is born every 7,000 years in the line of succession. So in the next video, I'm actually going to precisely read Genesis and then go into Revelation. Right now, I'm going to give an oversight of this to help us understand the things that have come forward. So in Genesis 1, we see that in order for a new kingdom to be born, what is the very first thing that has to happen? There has to be literally, the kingdom has to come together and come up with the plan for that new kingdom. That is literally the new moon feast and what the purpose of them are. So the plan came into motion, and then the first day began. And that's why they've had me show that, why there's an 8-day span in there. Okay, 8 is a number of resurrection, rebirth, restoration, renewal. And so the very first thing that has to happen is the family coming together and saying, okay, it's time, we're going to create this new heaven and earth. That is the whole purpose of the new moon feast, is to literally put the things of the kingdom into motion. And the Sabbath of light, are we're returning and reporting that work is being sanctified for the kingdom. It's being sanctified within us, that we are doing during that 7-day period. So the council has to happen first. That's the new moon feast. Okay, and then we go into the 7 days of creation. And so I'm going to explain the 7 days of creation and how this goes hand in hand with Revelation using the Mazzaroth and the tree of life. So, and how heaven, was divided, the light was divided from the darkness. So in Genesis 12, it says, "And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seeds after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good." Okay, the tree. We are the tree of life. The tree that is meant to produce fruit is us. Those seeds, they are yielding seeds from within us. The kingdom of heaven lives within us. They are the yielding seeds that then are put forth and planted as new trees of life sprout up. Okay, the truth is planted. We are the trees of light with that seed yielding within us. So we do the inward work, and our tree produces the fruit. By their fruits ye shall know them. This is all so glorious. Okay, so I'm going to turn to this whiteboard and explain the Mazzaroth and the tree of life. Okay, so first I'm going to have to move this around because I can't get it to go as clear as I had liked. Okay, so the tree of life. I've talked about this tree of life before. So from Genesis to Revelation, the whole goal is the tree of life. We are the tree of life. The 7,000 year records is this earth existence of what happened during this lifespan for this kingdom of the 7,000 years. So from Genesis to Revelation is the tree of life. Okay, in the tree of life, we are the tree of life. These books of life are held within us. There are records that we directly experience through these lives, and there are keys. And I've shown those keys before underneath every book. So these keys represent our gift, wisdom, knowledge, the progression that we made. So there are books of life, and as we tap back into them, then as we go inward, right, we tap back into our true, authentic self of who we are eternally. Then the fruit is brought forward, and it's bearing within itself. So then at that point, we are able to, once we understand that the kingdom is from within, we are able then to go and be the sowers that are planting the seeds of remembrance, helping others remember who they are eternally, that there's more to them than the here and now. This is why the dream ended with the tree of life. It's the end, but only the beginning. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. This is the moon cycles. I'm going to check really quick and make sure we can see this really fast. Yes, okay. Okay, so if we understand how creation works, it is so glorious and beautiful. So the cycles, there is a pattern, there's patterns and symbolisms to everything, and there are cycles in creation. So we see that the sun cycles through everything. They've had me teach this, that the moon cycles through, but the sun does it in one day, where the moon does it in 1 month, in 29 or 30-day cycles. Okay, so if we understand how the Mazzaroth works, okay, the Mazzaroth represents 1 day, and it also represents 1 month. Okay, so it represents 12 hours in a day, and it represents 12 months in a year. Okay, so this is Revelation 22:2, where it talks about the 12 tribes and 1 fruit each month, and 1 yielding fruit each month, which is 12. So yielding fruit, tree of life, yielding fruit. So Genesis 1 through Revelation 22, when it talks about creation, this is the creation pattern of a new heaven and earth coming forward. So when we understand this, 1 day on a Mazzaroth represents 1 year in God's timing. It is 1 year. 1 day, 1 year. Okay? And that is how a new heaven and earth is being born. So if we come down here, we see 7 days in Genesis. There were 7 days of creation. What were those 7 days? How long did it take to go through the birthing process and create a new heaven and an earth, and the travailing process of that taking place? It tells us in Revelation in Revelation it says 7 years. Okay, so then we see that 1 day equals 1 year. 1 day equals 1 year. We get to see the patterns and symbolism of this. So we get to see that we are the trees of life. The gifts and knowledge and wisdom that we have gained is here now to help the nations heal and be able to see the process that is actually happening, because the world right now, very much so, is asleep, but it's happening right before their eyes. So we now are in this birthing process of a new heaven and earth being born. We're in the travailing of it. This is the process. So we see how from the very beginning of Genesis to the very end, to the book of Revelation, to the end of those scriptures, that this is 7 days represents 7 years. This is a 7-year trials and tribulations that we'll go through, but it is the cleansing of the earth for a new heaven and earth to be born. So hopefully that helps us see this process and truly how glorious it is, so that we can understand where we are, and so that we don't get lost in this 7 years, not being able to see this beautiful process that is occurring of a new heaven and earth being born. And that we can remember we are here. We have done the inward work, and now we are here to heal the nations, and that's now planting the correct seeds of eternity. That is using that knowledge and wisdom gained, returning back to our true authentic self, remembering who we are eternally. That's the beauty in it. And that the kingdom truly lives within. And that is why the seed-bearing plants or trees literally bear the seeds from within. So then, with that knowledge and wisdom gained back from eternity through this spiritual journey and healing process, then we were able to go out and heal the nations with the true traditions of the fathers, the breaking of generational curses, helping use our spiritual gifts. Each of these keys in the books I talked about, they have to do with keys and gifts that are given. And in the last video, I talked about those beautiful gifts. So now may we use the gifts to truly heal the nations, and may we see the beautiful pattern of creation and what is actually taking place. Have a glorious day.